Hi, guys, how's it? It's me. We have just come back from showering, so if my face is shiny and glistening and glowing, well, it's because it's a nighttime routine and my face is super shiny afterwards. But actually, I do this even during the day, so I don't know what I'm talking about. I just want to move my water. I just want to move my water, if you didn't hear that, because we're struggling to get heard these days. Yeah, so you will recall, guys, like in the previous part, I was busy talking about how it's literally over for the world, and I'm trying to inspire or encourage Christians to not hold on for dear life to this earth because it's like kind of over right now. Well, that whole conversation is ensconced by my reality, and no, I'm not the be all and end all of a final authority, but my life, I've been asking God, why, if at all it's over, why not then just give me the last few years left here, with some kind of joy, like, why not make me like every other Christian? Why can't I just have my children and whatnot and my husband, and then boom, we go in the rapture? Why did I have to live like this? And I made mention of the fact that it's because it's practically worthless right now to try and raise the current generation of children that are being born in this ecosystem because of how incredibly evil it is and how hard it is going to be for even Christian parents who are very strong in their education of their children to train them properly, in spite even of homeschooling, because at some point these kids are going to have to go out there in the world, and the level of persecution that's going to be coming against the body of Christ is going to be so exquisite that not only just to avoid persecution will the kids turn, but also in an effort to fit in and of themselves and be embraced and not have to live such a hard life, will the kids also turn, and they will also this cat, they will also have an increasingly hard time respecting their parents who are very severely persecuted by the world at large. I think that's where I ended off. Every time I break off my conversations in order to go shower or do whatever, I always lose my bearings. So forgive me, I am going to find myself again. I only have like literally just 1 or 2 parts left, so we just need to seal this deal. Right now my cat just came in from outside, and you heard me saying, "Ish, this cat," right? I never used to feel that way about my cat, and I spoke about my cat in like the earlier parts, like maybe part 1 or 2 or 3, maybe 2, and how it is that she came in looking all dirty and scruffy, and I don't have the ability to restrict the cat's movement in the house to make sure she can't come in just any room, and also to restrict her movement out of the house to make sure, for instance, that she's an indoor cat, and how these living conditions have made me resentful of the cat. Like, I don't want to have an animal in these conditions, but I can't just throw the cat away. And my living conditions are similar to that which people have put other people in who don't have not cats or dogs, but children. They are so impoverishing. Like in Africa, it is such a bad problem. Witchcraft of people's careers, lives, or bewitching women by men to fall in love with them or to be with them, to marry them when they're not in their lease. Like Corobela, that's what it's called, right? And a relationship that starts like that is on stilts, frankly. It's unstable. It's been made tall by an artificial structure. A relationship like that is therefore not sustainable in the long term, because witchcraft, just like any artificial structure, ultimately is revealed for what it is. If, for instance, I were to record this video during the day, you will see the difference in the lighting conditions, because daylight hours are far more pleasant to the face, to the contours of the face, and even to cameras. Like, everything likes daylight hours. Right now you can tell I'm recording at night because I'm using artificial lighting, okay? There is something that is unsustainable in the medium to long term about that which is not real. And just like with artificial lighting versus natural lighting, so too it is with witchcraft. It does not last. Love or lust, it's not even really love, but it's lust. Lust that is induced in a person to have temporary affections or passions for an individual will not linger indefinitely. It would have to be kept together by sticky tape. The person who has done the witchcraft will have to keep on going back to the drawing board, because the individual that has been bewitched will naturally tend towards straying. They will gravitate towards that which they naturally are drawn to. So a woman that has been brought into a marriage through Korobela or a love curse will be more inclined to cheat on her husband than one that genuinely fell in love and got married to this man. So when then you are dealing with a relationship of that nature, where, it was entered into artificially by counterfeit measures, the instability of it means abandonment somewhere along the way of whatever has been burgeoned from this union. So children, we are dealing with the abandonment of maybe even that woman or that man. Just a neglect. It's like easy come, easy go. That's how witchcraft works. Easy come, easy go. It is that much easier to let go of a woman that is now kind of defective, essentially, according to your sorcery, since you think she is a factory item. When she starts to defect because she's not doing what you want her to do, it is easier for a man to just abandon her. On some, it's not working like how I wanted it to work. I wanted a stay-at-home wife. I wanted a housewife. I wanted a freak, because you know how they can be so perverted. I wanted a woman that's going to give me my pornographic desires, and she's just too modest for that, or conservative. And so it's very easy to just call for a divorce or to just dump, move on. Only go and, I guess, do introspection if you're into witchcraft over any woman or man that you have bewitched to be with you, and how easy it was to break up with them when they did not quite do what you wanted them to do. It's like a factory flaw, a factory defect that causes you to write off a product altogether because it's not doing what you want it to do. So the risk of abandonment in relationships manufactured through sorcery are very incredibly high. I will give you an example with my own experiences, my own victimization, shall I call it that, where it is that a wicked man came into my life using korobela. I developed feelings for him not because he had done korobela on me, but because I genuinely liked him. I liked him, but he wasn't able to tell that was real. It was easy come, easy go for him. So when I started to glitch and twitch, in other words, I did not operate the way that he wanted me to. He was looking for a submissive. And by submissive, I'm not speaking submission by the standards of the Bible, but by the standards of misogynistic men in this world. Submission, according to them, is utter silence. It is, don't question me. It is, I speak and you don't talk. It is, you are barefoot pregnant in the kitchen with no qualms or issues about how under heaven it is that I'm making money. You just accept and embrace that at least I'm bringing bread to the table, but don't try and find out what I do for a living. That is submission, right? And if you don't want to be this thing to me, I'm sorry, I don't want to have to be honest and account to a woman, some woman, what in the world under heaven it is that I'm doing with my life. So, yeah, you're not doing what I want you to do. And so I'm going to put you away. I had a man come into my life who had that kind of mindset. He wanted a submissive woman that would be barefoot and pregnant, happy to have a man provide for every last one of her needs for the rest of her life without her being in any capacity able at all to make money herself. Like, I did not mind being provided for by a husband. But should I have wanted to, for instance, start a home business of, like, I don't know, doing YouTube videos, sharing my Christian walk, or a home business, print on demand, making t-shirts, selling them online while I take care of my kids from home. I should have been able to do that. Indeed, the Proverbs 31 woman, it is written of her that she considers a field and she buys it. So she is kind of industrialized. She knows how to make money even though her husband is the main breadwinner. This man did not want me earning any kind of income at all because he understood the risk that he was taking by bringing a woman into his space that did not choose him. That would have rather been with somebody else instead of him. So because of the level of coercion, there is then like a level of control that comes with witchcraft where you want to be in control of how this thing moves, much like a puppet on a string. But because we are made in the image of God and we're human beings and we've got our own faculties, cognition, we have got a sentiency that is independent of control by demons or other spirits. We can actually make decisions, faculties operate for ourselves. Witchcraft then twitches and glitches with very incredibly megalomaniacal people who want to have the experience of literally being a puppet master over somebody who is on strings. They want a marionette, and when then it's not a marionette, but it's like a whole sentient human being, fluid, moving, making its own decisions, they then start to think this is glitching and it's twitching. So I don't want it this way. I want to go and manufacture in my own little factory in hell the perfect wife that's going to be basically this like subservient, subjugated to the tyranny of a wicked structure woman that's not going to complain even in the slightest. Whereas the scriptures say that if you don't listen to your wives, your prayers husbands are going to be hindered. So just a misunderstanding entirely of submission, biblical submission by a woman under a man who is given authority by God and is therefore godly, and in being godly is able thus to love a woman the way that Christ loved the church, which of course is not a lording over with an iron fist that has no faculties or will at all to make its own decisions, but rather able to lovingly reciprocate adoration to the Lord since the Lord adores her. Now, when you're dealing with just a control freak, there is no leg room for reciprocity. It's just a one-sided, you're gonna be my whatever I want thing. So they absolutely miss the point of what God's affection for the church looks like. It's not a robotic versus master of the robot type relationship. It's an understanding between sentient forces that have got their own faculties to think. Something that people into sorcery just don't quite understand with all the might that God has given the human race to think. So they choose to disregard portions of their brains. That's what I'm trying to explain to you guys. Now, that level of naivety is what causes abandonment. So we are finding this man that has got this woman in his life that is there using witchcraft, and they are expecting the witchcraft to make out of them a puppet master and this woman a marionette. And when she does not operate like a marionette, because what human being does, they just dish them. And it happened to me. It happened to me where I started to ask questions that indeed any woman that is in her right mind would ask the man that has sought to court her, that has sought to marry her. I started to ask questions, and this person glitched and twitched and basically spazzed out, essentially just kind of manifested demons, and in all of his anger and fury, then made a decision that, this is not going to work. She talks too much and she asks too many questions. So here it is that I had become reliant on a person that I thought was my future husband. He was my fiance, and then he just kind of like bailed on me, and there was nothing that I could say to him, and I was abandoned in these conditions with nowhere to go. I was feeling so tarnished as a human being, so worthless. Here it is that I've been suffering for so long, and finally the one person that walks up and says, I'm going to love you despite your conditions, then does this rubbish to me. This dude rocked up with witchcraft, and I knew that was the case, but because I was in so much pain, I accommodated something that God had been warning me about, and I was ignoring the red bells, the signs, the essentially just electric strikes in the sky that were flailing a flag of sorts. I ignored them all, and it bit me something bad. It took me, 2 or 3 months, maybe 2 months, to recover and just kind of snap out of just the sorrow of what in the world just happened here. Okay, here is a person glitching and twitching, and then as soon as I don't act like a robot in liaising with him, he abandoned me. Literally just kind of threw me away. I was the one that was like, maybe we should talk about this. I'm not really sure about how this thing is going to go, because I want to know what you're going to do, how you're going to make money. What do you do for a living? I was just asking questions that any woman in their right mind, when they have met a man that wants to make them a wife, would ask. I was not asking anything extreme. And this dude could not handle the fact that I didn't want to be with the tantamount of a Pablo Escobar, a gangster, that insofar as the money's coming in, it doesn't matter where it's coming from. I'm a Christian woman. I am supposed to be honest. So no woman in their right mind is of God if they've got a husband that they don't know where they make their money. They're just content to buy Christian Louboutins. Do you understand what I'm saying? This guy was shady like that, and he wouldn't answer my questions, and I might be suffering, and I might be in squalor, and I might be in a lot of sorrow right now, but I do come from a time when I had more in my life, and I was a little bit more respected for my opinion and what I spoke, and so therefore I've never experienced in my life, literally I've never encountered a man that just would not answer my questions or refuse to engage in a dialogue where we're getting to know each other honestly without being rude, fast-handed, passive-aggressive, kind of antsy, edgy every time. I've never experienced anything like that before, because I've always just dealt with normal men. Whenever they were asking me out, they understood that they had to pretty much put their best foot forward in order to win me over, and so they actually put in the effort. This dude, he found me in squalor and in obscurity, and it's almost as if though because of my position, he imagined he did not have to answer any questions, and any rubbish that he rocked up with, I just have to take in my stride. Well, that level of manipulation, gaslighting, reverse psychology, and just flat out sociopathy over an innocent woman is the general makeup of people in the last days. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're going to be so besotted, beside themselves, with adoration over things like witchcraft, that they're going to imagine they can convert entire thriving souls made in the image of God that God breathed into, and they became living souls, and just make out of them marionettes on a string. It's unfeasible, or even unfathomable, how anyone can feasibly think that way. And yet people are actually going to lose their minds to that height, where they're going to expect successful robot creation out of sentient beings created in the image of God, otherwise known as human beings. So when then you just abandon, throw away something that you initially wanted with all the fervor and might in your heart. You on that day are a person that has just purchased a toy at the Toys R Us, and you've worn it out, and its hair has gotten frizzy, or it's gotten all matted, and you don't want it anymore, so you just want to go to a store and buy it again. A society that is besides itself with adoration for witchcraft is a society that objectifies human beings like the way that you would objectify a toy that you have outlived, that has outlived its usefulness to you, that has basically reached a best before date, a sell by date, a use by date in your own perception, because a newer version is on the market now and you want it, you want it. You want it, you want it. Witchcraft converts human beings into shelf-bought items, FMCG cookies, that if you don't buy them within a certain period of time, they expire. And so therefore they're not worth your while, or they have to come at a cheaper price. That's what witchcraft does. It commoditizes human beings. It makes them individuals that you only spend a certain very tiny amount of money at a witch doctor to acquire services from. And if they don't operate in accordance to your business rules, in accordance to your specifications that you give to the witch doctor, you feel as if you can just throw them away, just abandon them. So when then you're living in a society of that nature, you are looking at child abandonment, you are looking at wife abandonment, maybe even husband abandonment. Basically the abandonment of that which you got, ill-gotten gain. It's easy come, easy go. It's malfunctional. It's got a factory defect, except it's a human being. Just no regard for the human component. Not that it is even a component, it's literally the be-all and end-all. No regard for the humanity of this individual that you are bewitching. So that's why, after people have cursed an individual with a spell, they can treat them so terribly. Because witchcraft literally commoditizes human beings. It makes people think that other human beings are manipulable with like string, puppet on a string type effects, such that if they don't twitch or act or move or just like freaking gesture in the same exact way that the sorcerer or the sorceress intended, they can just throw them away. When it's your own child, when it's your own wife, perhaps your niece, nephew, perhaps your best friend, think you can just end a relationship, like sever ties with a human being that you have known all of your life because you cast a spell, it didn't work out, so just throw them away. I am the victim of being literally just handed over to a dustbin by a conglomerate of former friends, family members, that put witchcraft on me, and after it didn't do what it was intended to do. In other words, when I started to malfunction and I had a defect, I did not operate in the way that they intended the sorcery to work. They just dumped me. They just threw me away. There is no family member or even friend of mine who bewitched me to a point of wanting to sever ties with me or never see me ever again. That was never their intention. Some of them, it was for me to drop out of university or to not pass as well or to just stop growing so fast up the corporate ladder. Just thought something or marry some dude that's not going to quite cut it. You know, like some dude that's not going to be intimidating because him and I are like a power couple or whatever. Their intention was to restrict the level of prosperity that I would gain in life, but not so much like thwart me, not finish me off, not stop me, not like halt me, seize me altogether, not do a like dead break on my life. And how it is that their sorcery rather manifested is that it literally created a dead break in my life. Like what was supposed to be just a slight tipping over of one domino became literally all the dominoes of my life. Everything fell apart. And no, that is not because of witchcraft, but because God made it that way. He gave them a strong delusion. But when then my life basically overreacted, like an unexpected chemical reaction that bombs an environment instead of just bubbling over, you know, what does this say? You get my point. Bubbling over some kind of petri dish. Instead of just bubbling over, but rather exploding, they then just like walked away. They cut me out, like from the earth. I currently hold the status in the hearts and minds of friends and family members very similar to that of a deceased human being. It's like I have died. I don't get mentioned in like conversations, parties, children's birthdays. Whatever it is, that might be a life event that, you know, upon your life progressing, when you experience it, this person obviously ought to have been there. I'm not anywhere in any of their lives, much like a deceased person is. And so you kind of have a bit of a trickle of a tear down your eye on your birthday when you blow out your candles because your cousin is not there since they died in 1994. No, I'm alive, yet they have given me the state amidst them of mundo or shonile, like a person who has passed on away. That is the level of abandonment that I have endured from my friends and family members that have put sorcery on me. Complete strangers don't matter because they were strangers anyway, but I have had witchcraft slapped me from strangers. That's how bad the situation is. The epidemic on the ground is with sorcery. But those who were close to me have no excuse for abandoning me like this, almost like I've passed away. Like no one literally raises me other than people that don't know I disappeared. Like the dude that we lost, like we're hanging out with in like 2002, who has never seen what happened to my life upon then asking my cousin, "Where's Karavo? You guys were so tight." And then she like touches here, leaves there, gets kind of like twitches around the topic, tries to avoid it. But everybody that saw what happened to me, literally they've got this like freaking gargantuan elephant in the room with multicolors on it and polka dots that is yawning at them, trumpeting, blasting that trunk of it. And they're trying to act like it's not in the room. It is so weird. Like, it's odd, yet they are embracing it. That's what witchcraft does. It causes abandonment. When people don't walk in lockstep with it, when people don't do what the witch wants them to do, or that individual that asked the witch to do a thing on their behalf, abandonment becomes a case in point. So when then you're dealing with a whole bunch of people just abandoned by those that they love, you're looking at an earth full of vagrants, frankly, just kind of wandering this earth, loitering with no one caring about them. And that's the kind of stuff that causes an increase even in lawlessness. It makes people criminals. It converts women that are entirely perfectly healthy, entire virgins, to become prostitutes. It converts sane, rational, sober, very intelligent young men to become gangsters. That level of abandonment is what causes an increase in lawlessness on the earth. And witchcraft is enabling that kind of abandonment because of just throwing people away. Now, this deadbeat guy from the United States of America that did this to me, ultimately, literally a whole year later, tried to come back into my life, and I told him, get out, don't talk to me. And now he's still busy with sorcery. He's trying to come back because guess what? He woke up to realize that no, she was a human being. And I actually did love her. And no, it doesn't get any better. And human beings get to talk and they get to fluidly move and be themselves. And I wanted her not to do such a thing as that. So now I'm going to do differently. But I'm still going to use witchcraft to try and get her. But this time I'm going to remember that she's human. As opposed to back then when I literally imagined she was a robot, the buttons of which I could press. And if at all she did not do what I wanted her to do, I just took it back to the witch doctor and said it's a factory defect. He even tried to kill me. That's what I'm dealing with. That's what we, as the body of Christ, are dealing with. An earth full of crazy people that are causing a severe amount of abandonment of human beings that is then therefore directly responsible for causing more crime, more immorality. And there is no stopping it but for the tribulation, the rapture. It's coming. The abandonment even, or the desire to abandon or walk away from my animal, my cat, is inspired by the fact that I have been so abandoned. And so I can no longer dote and love my animal the way that I used to love and dote over my animal because I am in such freezing conditions that I can't take care of the cat properly. So imagine that being then a woman with a child who initially gives birth to an adored baby. And then this human individual in her stomach starts to become more of a snare than a blessing because she's suffering so much. So the kid then becomes a burden on the shoulder of the mom when the mom initially was just so beside herself with happiness when the baby was born. Let's move to the next part to continue to talk about this. I can't speak for more than a certain amount of minutes.